Aye.
Councilmember Andrusik.
Aye.
Councilmember King.
Councilmember King, you're muted.
Hello. Dave.
Aye.
Okay. And Councilmember Sanchez.
Aye.
And Mayor Sierra.
Aye, and may I compliment our finance director for her financial report for the fourth quarter. Very detailed, just really, really fun to read, and I truly appreciate the update. Thank you. Any presentations tonight?
No presentations this evening, no.
All righty, moving on to public hearings. We have resolution number 20-25, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Buellton, California, finding and determining that in the public interest, convenience, and necessity require the acquisition of property interests for public purposes. Ms. Hess, that's you.
Madam Mayor and Council, before Ms. Hess starts, I just want to lay down some of the background and kind of explain what it is that you're being asked to do tonight. I know that eminent domain is not something that the City of Buellton does often. Certainly haven't done it since I've begun working with you. So I just wanted to give you kind of a brief primer on this. Before you tonight is what's called a resolution of necessity. If you adopt this resolution, what it does is it lets your staff and the eminent domain attorneys, Alan Sozio, who is a member of my firm, begin a process to exercise eminent domain authority through litigation and condemn some property. Now, they will be paying fair market, we, the city, will be paying fair market value for that property. And in this case, it's going to be used for the widening of McMurray Road at Highway 246. It also, as will be described to you, will allow the condemnation of a little bit more property for use during construction. It's a temporary taking of that property. And again, paying the appraised value or the fair market value for that temporary taking. To adopt the resolution, you're going to be asked to make some findings that you'll see in the resolution. And I just want to talk about four key findings for you. First finding is that you're going to be asked to find that the public interest, convenience, and necessity require the project. And in this case, the project is the widening to allow for the left turn phasing signal and road capacity at McMurray and 246. Now, this means that the project as a whole is in the public good. Finding is not about the land at issue in the condemnation case. It's about the whole project. Second, you're going to be asked to find that the project is planned and located in a manner that will be most compatible with the greatest public good and the least private injury. Now, again, we're talking about the project as a whole, the widening of McMurray, not the taking of this particular piece of land. Of course, the taking of this particular piece of land, even with fair market value compensation, causes private injury, and nobody would say that it doesn't. That's what the compensation's for, and that's what has been negotiated for some time. But that's not what you're being asked to find. You're being asked to find that the overall project is designed to have the greatest public good and the least private injury. The third finding I want to just kind of touch on, and this is one that is about the property at issue. You're asked to find that the taking of this particular property is necessary and required for the overall project. So if you found that the McMurray widening project is in the public interest and necessity, now here on finding 3, you're thinking about whether the taking of this property is necessary for that widening project. Fourth, you need to hear facts, and I believe you will, that an offer to purchase was made to the owner of the property pursuant to the government code, and that the amount of the offer is supported by an appraisal of the fair market value. There are other findings that you'll see in the resolution. Correct notice of this hearing was given, and that the city otherwise complied with statutory and CEQA requirements. So you're going to hear next from your staff and from the attorneys working on the project. They're going to give you facts and other legal background that we believe, will support the findings that you're going to be asked to make tonight. You've received some letters, and you'll also, I believe, hear tonight verbally from representatives of parties with an interest in the property. And if members of the public wish to weigh in, they can as well. After you hear all of the testimony and close the public comment portion of the hearing, then you can ask any final questions of staff and the attorneys. Now, as a final point from me, before I turn this over to the real experts here, I want to say that adopting the resolution authorizing staff and the attorneys to move forward with filing litigation does not in any way stop negotiations or eliminate the possibility of settling this in a mutually beneficial way. Most eminent domain cases that get filed wind up settling because parties want to avoid a trial. It's certainly everybody's hope that something can be worked out. But I can say that negotiations are at a point now where it seems to staff and the attorneys that they need to at least begin moving litigation forward so that this project as a whole can finally be completed. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Hess, and she will be working in Alan Soto and Eric Phillips as she needs. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, City Attorney Murphy. Director Hess.
Thank you, Madam Member. And let me share my screen here.
There we go.
Okay. So the project at the northeast corner of McMurray Road and Highway 246 includes the widening of McMurray Road, traffic signal improvements, pavement and lane improvements, which would also bring the project to the roadway width's ultimate right-of-way. So this project has long been established as a need for the city. This has been identified in the city's general plan. This particular intersection is the most congested intersection for the city, and it's deficient in capacity. There's a lot of delays in that area, and it's also the highest intersection related to accidents, particularly with the Highway 246 left turn movement towards northbound McMurray Road. What you have before you is just a general aerial of the area for your overview. And we've drawn in a red line there, as you can see in this area, that shows you the approximate area between the red line and the sidewalk of right-of-way that we would need to complete this project. You can see above to the north of the gasoline station property, the ultimate right-of-way has already been constructed as part of the village-specific plan, and improvements have already been completed and accepted by the city. This gives you a different perspective from the street as far as the areas we are looking at. Again, there's the red line at the bottom of the screen, and that visual that shows you the approximate area of right-of-way that we would need and for the particular project. And at the top of the screen, you'll see the intersection viewpoint in which the area of the most point of conflict for collisions occur, and that particular traffic signal is almost always brand new because we have frequent accidents and trucks and turning movements hitting that particular signal, jumping over the sidewalk, or the pedestrian areas would be in that handicap ramp area, and then just creating the conflict movements. And this last visual is going to be the one that's the most telling for all of us. So what you have here, an overlay, is a whole lot of information. The red lines is an overlay of the proposed improvements for the project. You'll see starting from the left, we've got the right turn lane southbound right turn dedicated lane will remain in place. We're going to continue the southbound bicycle lane on through. We will now have a straight dedicated through lane for southbound McMurray, and we will have shifted over a dedicated left turn lane. To the right of that, we're going to have a new disposed northbound through lane. We're going to continue the bike lane from the south, and then we're going to connect the sidewalk with the new ADA access ramp onward north to the existing sidewalk that was developed here by the village properties. As you see, moving forward more towards the east and looking at the on-site improvements, the driveway on the west side of Highway 246 for the gas station will be reduced a few feet. It'll be narrowed, but will not be closed. We're going to relocate the landscape planter. There are signs, landscaping, and other electrical and pertinent facilities that's within that location will be transposed and adjusted further to the east as well. On McMurray side of the project, there is an existing driveway that is the access for the gas station. We are going to continue and just push that further to the east as well. In addition, at the request of Thrifty, we are adding an additional driveway to the north, so they've got complete access along McMurray Road to facilitate vehicle and truck movement through the property. Further to the north, existing is a block wall along Thrifty property. We're proposing to remove the block wall and then push back the existing curb that they have and push it to the very edge of their property line, and gives them a few extra feet of additional pavement. And it'll also allow the site to be more integrated into the village specific plan properties to the north. There's a lot of landscaping in the area to the north, in which there is a current access easement in favor of the Thrifty property. There will not be vehicular traffic through there. In addition to the curbing that's proposed, we're proposing either bollards or some sort of low fencing that would keep vehicles from trying to traverse through the landscape area to cross the property. And then that curbing just wraps around here to the east side. The improvements that you don't see in this particular visual are off-site. The southwest corner of McMurray and Highway 246. We are replacing the existing traffic pole and the mast arms so that the signal heads coincide with the new proposed lane configurations. That is the bulk of the project proposal here. Staff did review alternative designs, one of which is reviewing the west side of McMurray Road for widening as opposed to the east side. We run into a lot of constraints here. First, the road would then jog further. Oops. Excuse me, I want to get that back. There we go. The road would jog unnecessarily to the west, and the alignment would have a lot of issues with the southbound lane, particularly with the traffic signal pole and the mast arms. In addition to that, there's a lot of fixed facilities. They're already underground and have daylighted, and this corner of the intersection, including storm drains and sewer and other traffic signal facilities and utility boxes. We looked at the alternative of reducing the right-of-way required on the south I'm sorry, this northeast corner. Right now, we're proposing a 12-foot right-of-way acquisition in order to complete this project. We tried looking at a reduced width of maybe 8 feet as the minimum that would be plausible. And that still posed additional restrictions as well. And the main restriction for that would be our requirement for accessible sidewalks and pedestrian access. That design would require us to do a pedestrian access that goes through the driveway as opposed to surrounding the driveway, which isn't compatible and compliant with current ADA laws. So at this point, in order to meet our ultimate right-of-way and make the path for pedestrians contiguous and provide the accessibility that's required when we do these improvements, this is still the significant and most favorable option to provide the public improvements required. Also what you're looking at, so this yellow shaded area that you see here, this is approximately 12 foot in width, and that is the area that the city needs to acquire in order to provide the ultimate right-of-way for McMurray Road. The second part of the resolution that we are requesting is our temporary construction easement, and that area is this area in green, which also is underlaid within this acquisition. And the location of this easement was constructed so that it provides the contractor the ability to perform work to complete the improvements in the area, such as when they're removing the wall, pouring concrete, placing new pavement, relocating facilities on site, particularly the pole, landscaping, electrical, et cetera, allows them the movement ability on site to get the work done. It is not proposed for the contractor to have a lay-down yard to stage equipment for multiple days. If there is poles or materials needed, it would be in the vicinity of the work that would be completed and at the time that the work shall be done. It's not meant to be there in perpetuity, and the idea is to reduce the impacts to allow the gas station to be operable during construction. The plan was the west driveway on 246 would be impacted during construction, but that still leaves the east driveway on Highway 246. And in addition, when we do the two driveways on the McMurray portion, the plan is to do the new driveway on the north side of the road first. That would leave their existing driveway open, and then work would shift in the reverse, so that driveway would be open and the south would be closed, so that work area can be completed. And these are items, more details to that would be addressed once the project is bid and we have a contractor on board to work with them and the site and the property owners to be the minimalist impact to the site as possible. So with that, as far as attachments, I can stop sharing the screen for a moment. The project, I said, we are chiming it to try to work with the village-specific plan improvements. That project has since been completed, and improvements to the north have been completed and accepted by the city. The city has completed its appraisal and review process, and that letter of offer of compensation has been sent to the property owner, and that was sent, I believe, on May 22nd of 2020. And the offer letter did include the appraisal prepared by John Ellis with Integra Realty Resources out of Los Angeles. And I believe Mr. Phillips will go over the environmental aspects of the projects. But if you have any questions at this point in time as far as the improvements that is proposed for the project.
All righty, thank you very much. Why don't we go with questions to Rose, and then we'll go on to our environmental specialist. Let's see, Vice Mayor Mercado, did you have any questions?
I have one for Rose. Rose, after all of this is done, is the Caltrans permit going to be readily available, or do we have to go through another lengthy process to get that to start on the project?
Well, we have not yet resubmitted a new application to Caltrans. We've updated the plans and specs to the current code because that has since changed since our original submittal several years ago. We are waiting for confirmation with the property owners and their tenants as far as what improvements, if we've given them copies of our plans that shows the proposed improvements we have on their site. We have not received confirmation yet that that is acceptable. So once we have a firmer grasp on the plan completion, then we'll take that plan set and submit it to Caltrans. I don't anticipate the review to take too long because the first cycle of review, we were at permitting stage and we were just waiting for right-of-way, and then the permit time ran out. So we believe the process to be 2 to 3 months through Caltrans as far as processing, and then the project would be able to move forward.
Okay, that's it. Thanks, Madam Mayor.
Ready. Councilman Andrusik, any questions for Director Hess?
No, I appreciate the presentation.
All righty. Councilman Sanchez, any questions?
No, I was just wondering if some of this would be at night to be doing.
Yes, that is definitely an option that we're going to be putting in our plans and specs, so that we want to make sure we try to do the work at a time period that would be have the least impact towards the property.
And then how long do you think it would take, like, just to get the first driveway in so that they would not disrupt them that much,
That I don't know at this time.
And how long would the whole project plan to take? About,
For just a regular construction project off-site, this is probably 3 months, but that's just an estimate at this time.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Councilman King, any questions?
Just a couple of clarifications, I think, more than questions. On the, where you show number 5, where that traffic signal is on your diagram, and in the package it is on, oh shoot, well, it's before the Burke text. Basically, where that traffic signal is, do we have any intention on widening that a little bit? Because I do live in this town, we often have a little bit of an issue of being able to, you have the number 1 and the number 2 lane, and then you can make the right-hand turn on McMurray northbound. So on number 5 there, well, see where it says number 2?
Yes.
In that vicinity, right there in the corner. Do we have any intention on making that wider? Because, like I said, often people will kind of cheat over to the right side of the number 2 lane, and that is counting one, from
On Highway
left
2.
turn lane.
On Highway 246?
On Highway 246, correct. So see where that curb line is. So often where that bike lane is, people kind of cheat, like I said, over to the right side of that number 2 lane, and you can't make that right-hand turn. So do we have any intention of widening that at all, or are we going to start at the northeast corner and just take that 12 feet?
Right. It's so on Highway 246 itself will not be widened. The radius changes, so because the north leg will be widened itself. So there's room there in order to make that turn versus before. It's kind of pretty tight.
Correct. Okay. The other question I have for you is on Valley Vineyard Circle, which is north of where we are intending to widen. There are two, I don't know if you want to call them traffic calming or where they have the planters that are up at Valley Circle. Is there any intention for us to take those out to make this basically contiguous up McMurray Road?
Not at this time. Right now, so if you see the screen I'm sharing, if you can see my cursor moving around here, where the sidewalk has this transition towards the southwest. So
Correct.
basically the curb and gutter here in this sidewalk parking area is going to be contiguous all the way south. And there will still be a bulb out here. So the lane will shift. Fortunately, I don't have the street plans overlaid on this far out, but the street lanes will stay in this configuration. That way, the parking area will remain available for the businesses on the east side and still have that safety area here. So the lane will shift.
Gotcha. So to follow up on that, we have no intention to allow any parking in basically what is going to be a transition lane.
That's
from the
correct.
246 to northbound McMurray. So that's all going to be driving lane.
Yes, correct.
And then so we're going to continue to allow that parking where we just indicated, correct?
Yes.
Okay, gotcha. Okay, no further questions. Thank you.
Wonderful. Rose, I just had a couple before we turn it over to Mr. Phillips. How long have we been working on this project?
Well, I started working on this in 2007, and it was already an active project. So well over 2 decades.
2003, I believe. That's the earliest I could find. And how many owners have we gone through with this piece of property?
Same one.
I don't recall.
Is it? I thought we'd been through about 3 different. Same owner? Okay. Huh. I wonder why it's taken so long. We did study alternatives. The owner asked us to do that, and nothing was feasible?
The 2 alternatives that we looked at is not feasible. This is the best way and the best interest as far as the improvements for the cities. Like I said, moving further to the east, to the west, there's a lot of fixtures and utilities that's already built there that would be very costly to relocate, if that's even possible. And then the reduce width, we'll still run into the same issues with the truck and turning movements being tight as far as going to the northbound. In addition, we're going to be restricted with accessibility for pedestrians on that leg of McMurray.
Okay. I do know, we get the calls all the time for the poor trucks that are trying to make a left turn that hit that light on a regular basis. The changes that we're going to make, the city is paying for all the changes, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All righty. Those are my questions. Did you want to introduce Mr. Phillips then?
Yes, we have Mr. Phillips. He's the environmental attorney for BWS. Eric?
Ready?
Good evening. Thank you, Madam Mayor, for having me. I'll just say a few words to explain how the city is complying with CEQA, the California Environmental Quality Act, in connection with its potential action tonight. So as Madam Mayor, you were just discussing with Ms. Hess, this is a project that has been contemplated by the city and analyzed for quite a long time, back in 2003, as you said, and then as recently as the 2007 adoption of the current village-specific plan and adoption of the corresponding CEQA addendum for that document, the city has been contemplating expanding the right-of-way. In to implement the McMurray Road improvements that are being discussed here tonight. So again, the city has already certified an EIR that contemplates the environmental effects of having the road in this configuration and implementing the overall project. Tonight, the city is considering a resolution of necessity and potentially kicking off condemnation actions. We have to comply with CEQA before acquiring the property, but the use of eminent domain or condemnation itself doesn't have any physical environmental effects. The CEQA compliance that's required is to analyze the environmental effects of the roadway improvements and the project itself. And as I just explained, that was already done in connection both with the general plan and the specific plan that govern the area. So once you have a certified EIR, there are only 3 circumstances that allow you to reopen that environmental certification. The first is if the project itself changes. And as we just talked about, this is a project that's been contemplated for a long time. It's being implemented exactly the way it was shown in the specific plan. The second is if the circumstances around the project have changed and there are no new circumstances that are relevant or that would relate to new significant impacts. All the development that's happened in the area has been the development that was planned in the specific plan. So we are just furthering that and carrying forward the same environmental effects that originally would have had. The third potential CEQA reopener would be if there's new information that wasn't known at the time and couldn't have been known at the time that would indicate that there's a new significant impact that wasn't already disclosed. And again, there's no evidence in the record that that has occurred. Absent those 3 circumstances, the fact that it's an older environmental analysis doesn't really have any bearing under the law, and we're able to go forward with the disclosed environmental impacts of implementing the project. And to that end, there's an explanation of that in the staff report, and in the proposed resolution for you tonight, there's some findings that would explain how the city has already done the CEQA analysis to implement the roadway improvements in connection with its specific plan efforts in the past. And I'm happy to answer any additional questions about the work that's been done or what else might be required.
Thank you very much. Councilman, any questions for Mr. Phillips?
Good.
Oh, man.
All righty. Well, thank you very much. Rose, is it time for public comment? Did you have anybody else?
I'm not sure if Mr. Sozio has anything else to add. If he doesn't, Alan?
There we go. I'm off mute. I really don't. You did a great job, Rose. The only thing I would add is that the temporary construction easement was the language itself was drafted in a way intentionally so that it's non-exclusive, meaning it gives us a certain amount of flexibility to work with the operator of the site. If we reduced it, then the work would be more concentrated and would give us less flexibility and may actually result in greater impact. So we intended to draft the language of the easement. There's language in there that indicates we'll work with the property owner and the operator the best we're able to minimize impacts. As Rose said, there aren't going to be any laydowns or no overnight parking. Take all steps that we can to allow them to use the site, operate the gas, and have access to the C-store. And again, I'm available if anybody else has any questions.
Thank you. Did council have any questions for Mr. Sozio?
No, good.
No? All righty. Then I appreciate the information. I'm going to open it up for public comment. We've got 3 minutes. I would imagine that Mr. Gravel probably wishes to speak. We did receive your letter. I think we've all read it. It's part of the records. Was there anything else you wanted to add to that, sir?
Yes, and I will not try not to repeat what is in the letter. Looking through my notes here, I want to address a couple of the points that were addressed by the city presenters. One is, as Mr. Murphy points out, oftentimes these cases do settle, but the city, I think, needs to consider the fact that if they adopt this RON, that is the wrong resolution necessity in the size of the TCE they must, in essence, live or die with at the time of trial, or whether it's reasonable and necessary. So, for example, sure, we could and we may settle with a smaller TCE, but if those settlement discussions are not fruitful, the city will have to go forward and prove its case on the size of the TCE as it is now. And our concern, I represent Tesoro Refining and Marketing, which has the leasehold interest. They lease from Thrifty Oil. Our tanker trucks need to go behind the station in order to drop fuel. They do not arrive at a set schedule. It is on an as-needed basis. It is extremely likely that they may show up and there'll be some materials or some object in the way that will prevent them from dropping their fuel. That will have a huge impact on our sales and hence our claim against the city for damages. One other thing that I heard here was a mention about the need for the TCE to remove the block wall. It's my understanding that the purpose of this resolution necessity was for the left-hand lane or McMurray. I have an impression here that what's happening is there is a smaller project, the removal of the wall, that is being shoehorned in here as part of the larger project. And the problem with that is that TCE, that 35-foot wide TCE behind the station, a lot of that presumably is needed for that block wall, and that's where we're going to have a great deal of impact to our business activities that are ongoing there. It is true that as Mr. Sozio points out, that it is a non-exclusive easement. However, it does not prohibit certain activities. For example, nothing in there says you cannot fence a part of the TCE. Nothing in there says that you cannot park vehicles there during the day that might obstruct our tanker trucks and so forth. So while there are some protections in there that are purportedly intended to minimize impacts to the business activities, there are very few prohibitions or restrictions on what may be done in those TC areas. From the leasehold, am I at 3 minutes?
I'm afraid so.
Very well. Thank you all for your time.
Thank you.
May I just offer to answer any questions?
Absolutely. And honestly, I appreciate you being here. What you bring up are valid points. When I close public comment, if council has any questions, then they'll go from there. Does anybody else want to speak on this matter?
Yes, Your Honor, Kevin Brogan. I submitted a letter as well. I represent Thrifty Oil Company. As Mr. Gravel noted, Thrifty's the landlord in this property. It's owned the property for decades, and Tesoro's the current lessee. We have grave concerns about the size of the temporary construction easement, what uses can be made of that, how the city would be able to limit its contractor, because once these contractors get on a site, no offense to contractors, they take every bit they can use. We don't want to have complaints from Tesoro saying, hey, we're trying to get a truck in and your guys won't move the porta potty or whatever the heck it is. This is a real problem in terms of operating a station, and to me, the city's made no effort to minimize the impact to the station. In fact, if anything, a 35-foot wide construction easement over the backside of the property where RVs and trucks need to get in to go to the diesel island, and that is needed for the, in particular, the fueling. It's really, really important that this they be able to do that on an unobstructed basis, or Tesoro is going to be complaining that they can't get in and they can't get access, and that's going to be a goodwill claim that's going to be very, very significant, in addition to the issues long-term for the property. Mr. Gravel also pointed out that the rear wall, north wall, which the city manager had said we might be able to use in the after condition, is now being eliminated, and they're putting in a curb. I don't know what that has to do with the widening of McMurray, but it doesn't seem to me to be related to that. And as Mr. Gravel says, it seems to be a shoehorn attempt at trying to do some other work. When I look at, and just to go big picture, when I look at the other side of McMurray, I see nothing but trees and wide open spaces. I can't see any utility boxes there. I'd really be interested in determining whether or not this is most compatible with the greatest public use and least private injury. And we're going to have to deal with a 2003 EIR and that, and how it analyzed that west aspect, because we believe it's a feasible alternative to this, which we think is going to be a significant impact to the station long-term and in the short term. Unless there are any questions, I'll hang it up.
Thank you, sir. I appreciate that. Do we have any other public comment, Linda?
No, ma'am.
Okay, then I'm closing public comment, bringing it back to the council for discussion. Rose, do we have answers for, I know that the city has property at the end of McMurray. Can we use any of that property for staging here, or is that just too far a distance?
Oh, no, there's different areas we can utilize. We do have the area at the south end of McMurray. There is vacant land immediately to the north, just north of the Valley Vineyard Circle. We can speak with that property owner to utilize that as a staging area. So the staging area isn't an issue at this particular point. And then I do want to address with the removal of the wall. There was a representative at one of the meetings that we've had with Thrifty Oil as far as maximizing the space on their property for turn movements, vehicular movements, etc. So that was where the removal of the CMU wall and pushing it back a couple of feet where they have we've got some landscape area and paving that area to provide the additional asphalt for that area. That's not a part of the project that's necessary, as they mentioned, to the widening of Highway 246. So if they would like that option removed, that is something that we could do as well.
May I speak to that issue, ma'am?
Very, very quickly, sir. Very quickly.
That was one of the things that had been proposed to us, but in the plans that are before you, there is a curb on our property line, so you cannot use the extra 10 feet. So I don't get that.
No, let me clarify. It's not taking the 10 feet into the landscape area. I think there's still a couple of feet adjacent to the existing wall and the curb that was requested, for additional paving. So to facilitate any additional turn movements or traffic areas or parking or whatever it is that is needed for that area.
We would like as much space as we can get in the after condition, which is after the taking. But if you put a curb there, that's going to eliminate that.
Okay. Thank you. I'm hoping that would be a very minute part of these plans. Gentlemen, comments?
I have one.
Councilman Sanchez?
Yeah, I had the same question today when I saw the letter about the construction zone on the north end, and I thought that was way too much property to ask for with that part, and we would be able to use another area, I would think, instead of their property for construction zone. And the wall thing makes a lot of sense not to have. So you could, if you didn't like the wall, you could just cut it and get it out of there if that was something that could be done in a couple days. But turning it into a month project to pull the wall down, I think, is also over an encumbrance for the property owners. And I just like to work more with them and make them happy with more room in the back of them and keep them in business better. And also using the property just north of the sidewalk, or even the sidewalk ahead, or the parking area as a staging area, I think would be better than using their property and maybe another close piece of property. That was just my observation.
Okay. Vice Mayor Mercado, comments?
Yeah, I was going to just ask Rose, is that property that you're talking about would be the property that was supposed to be the hotel?
Yes, that's a vacant, yes, that's a vacant area that we could look into. We'd have to discuss with the property owners as well, but that when you look down, when you're looking for staging areas, you're looking for open vacant area in which to put equipment, et cetera.
Right.
Again,
I understand that.
just to reiterate though, the temporary construction easement that we're requesting on the gas station site is not for that purpose. It's merely the area in which we would do work. Like I said, if the contractor's vehicles needs to drive through, or a paving machine is there and needs to pave asphalt, et cetera, those would be areas that the vehicles may be in. It is not for the purpose of storing equipment, materials, et cetera, for the project.
See, my guess is, Rose, that if the city takes that 12 feet, that if a construction vehicle goes over that 12 feet, unless we have temporary access to that property, then technically we're trespassing. Is that
Right.
Yeah?
The old adage says that you can't pour concrete where you're standing, so you need to have an area off-site where you're working so that you can do the work.
Yeah.
The easement size, as I mentioned before, was carefully considered, but my understanding was as it gave us the flexibility, as I indicated, so that we intended to minimize impacts. The language itself says by its terms that there won't be any parking or storage of any vehicles or equipment overnight in the area. And there's also express language in there that, I'm just reading from it, during the TCE term, the property owner and its tenants and customers may use any of the TCE areas that are not then being used by the easement holder, and that the work that's going to be performed in those areas would be in such a manner as to not affect the visibility or adversely affect the business and the operations of the property. So, of course, there's going to be some impacts that, and that's the reason that the TCE is going to be taken. But the way that it's drafted, really, we have to look at what's actually going to be happening construction-wise. And if there is an actual construction going on in that area, they have the right to use that area at any time. And Rose, I know the question was asked by Thrifty, or maybe it was Tesoro. Would there be an opportunity when work was going on where someone could actually ask and the work could be moved? I'll defer to you, but I think the answer would be yes. And the easement is drafted.
Right, that's correct.
Yeah. Our city very much appreciates the sales tax that your business gives us. So we are going to try to make as minimal as impact, I would imagine, as possible. Councilman Andresic, do you have any comments? Final questions?
I'm just listening to the interaction. I don't
Okay.
think that the project has moved a foot.
Councilman King?
I do have a little concern about, and I understand what some of the stakeholders are talking about. From that brick, according to Google, when I just measured it out, between that brick wall that's on the north side of this property and the island on the northwest side of that piece of property, it's only about 33 or 34 feet to the pumps. I don't quite understand why in this project they asked for so much of a TCE on that north end of that piece of property. I mean, I'm sure we can come to some kind of agreement with the leaseholders and the owners of this property that maybe we could pare that down a little bit just to kind of, I mean, it seems like it's an argument going back and forth about this TCE, that on the west side of this project, we have 15 feet, and then on the north side, and maybe Rose can answer this question, is why we asked for 35 feet on that north side of that piece of property if we don't necessarily need that, or if there is a necessity, what is it? Because I can also look at this and see that, and I can kind of see that from the point of the property owner, that if you see where the fuel tanks delivery system looks like it is just to the west of the north building. And so those tankers would, I've never really noticed it before, but it looks to me like they would have to come in from that east driveway, go around the back of the building, and then dispense fuel into those underground tanks. What I'm saying looks like about 6 or 8 feet to the west of that building. So maybe, I guess my question is to Rose, is why did we ask for that 35 feet of that TCE on the north end of that property?
So, Councilman King, when we are looking at establishing the TCE areas, we're being very conservative in the space that we're requesting. And in our viewpoint, without having in detailed discussions with the contractor who's likely to bid on this project, and the equipment and things that he needs, the larger the area that we can request that doesn't impact the actual facilities themselves is what we requested. Because as Mr. Sozio mentioned, it's a non-exclusive TCE, so we aren't encompassing every area of that. That is just the maximum area in which we could go. I'd hate to ask for an area too narrow and then be outside of that area and create an issue. So can it be reduced? Probably. I don't have a dimension at this point in time, but that is the logic behind it.
Well, I think that's what I'm kind of getting, is that's what the concern of the stakeholders in this piece of property is that we're, I mean, if we can come to some kind of a mutual agreement to maybe pare that down a little bit and maybe have the contractors come out and say, okay. I mean, rather than kind of have an argument about it, we can maybe take a second look at it.
Well, Councilman King, my guess is that they are going with the 35 feet because they're going to have concrete trucks in there and equipment in there when they are pouring, and that at this point, that's what they feel comfortable with. I'm sure if they can get away with less, then they will use less. Again, we don't want to hurt this business.
Right.
That's just my guess. But
right. But I've never seen
they're asking for this because this is what they feel safe and comfortable with at this time.
Madam Mayor, Councilmember King made a statement of fact, which I believe he may be mistaken about, and I think it might bear on his decision-making and the other council members. May I just
really quickly, public comment's been closed. I'll let you make your point, and then we need to move on.
The area in the northwest corner that Mr. King thought was the underground storage tanks, those are actually diesel fuel dispensers. The USTs, the underground storage tanks, are located at the southeast corner. The trucks still need to go behind the station, but that area you see in the northwest portion, those are the diesel dispensers that RVs, buses, and others use, and they also require going behind the store in order to utilize those. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you.
Yeah, and just to clarify, Mayor, I know those are fuel pumps right there for diesel right there on the northwest corner. So I guess what I'm seeing here is that concrete pad that is on the southeast corner is where the tanks are.
I believe that's correct.
All right.
I had a question.
Certainly. Councilman Sanchez, question?
what have we just eliminated to getting rid of the wall? Is that what, how important is that to the project, the wall? And that giving us the 35 feet and all that, and it doesn't sound like the tenants are interested in moving the wall. And I just wonder how necessary that is to this project. Thank you.
Rose?
Yes, the wall, like as I mentioned, it's not necessary for our particular project. That was one of the requests early on when we had initial discussions. And if the property owner has no interest in the wall and that additional paved area, and that's totally fine, we can remove that.
At this point, may I speak, Your Honor? Excuse me, Madam Mayor? Sorry.
Yeah, I give up.
Okay.
This is it, though. I mean, say what you got to say, and then it's up to council.
If this taking is going to happen, we need every square inch we can get in addition to, so we can mitigate what's been taken from us. So to the extent we can go north without the curb, so we can get as much turning area as we can, I think that's important for the traffic and the internal circulation of the station, sir. And that's my thought.
Thank you. Council, where are we going with this?
Well, Madam Mayor, I think we need to go forward with it. There was something that happened today. I was coming home from work, and it was 3:30, quarter to 4. A lot of traffic on that corner, and a highway patrol was going westbound with lights and sirens, and every lane was practically booked. He slowed down. People were trying to get out of the way, but there was nowhere to go. So having a little bit more space there, I think when there is an accident or something like that, whether it's the sheriff, fire, ambulance, I think that would help our traffic easement a whole lot better. So I would be forward to moving on with this.
Is that's a motion?
I will make a motion, and well, if you want to have any other discussion first, and if not, I will make that motion.
Second.
Yeah. We've had a motion and a second by Councilman King. Linda?
Okay, Vice Mayor Mercado.
Aye.
Councilmember King.
Aye.
Councilmember Andrusik.
Aye.
Councilmember Sanchez.
No, because I'd like to just work more with the property owners on the north wall, but no.
And Mayor Sierra.
Aye. Thank you. I'm sure that our Public Works Department will try to make this as accessible, as easy for the owner and the tenant as possible. This is something we've had. We have accidents there probably twice a month. It's scary, and we've been trying to correct the problem for a while. And I hope this doesn't take us into litigation, but this is something that has to be corrected. So thank you very much, gentlemen. Okay, let's see.
So, Madam Mayor and Council, so you have adopted the resolution of necessity. Again, staff and Mr. Sozio will continue to negotiate in good faith with the owner, with the tenant. But as was mentioned, as litigation is filed, these are the parameters that would move forward in litigation. Obviously, it's our hope that this can be worked out in a different way. We'll continue to brief you as events transpire. Thank you all very much.
I appreciate the work that's gone into it. Thank you, Mr. Phillips, Sozio. Thank you, Mr. Brogan, and Doug. Thank you very much for this. I hope it doesn't come to litigation either. Okay, we are moving on to council member comments / items. Vice Mayor Mercado, any comments / items?
Not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilman Andrusik?
Yes, Madam Mayor. I think the guys that sell shock absorbers are loving these speed bumps on Avenue of the Flags. That is, I don't know how they got there. I think we have gone too far on it. I don't know how many of you have had your items in your trunk displaced. As you 25 miles an hour, you can't do it. It's 10 miles an hour to come over those speed bumps, and we're going to be back into litigation on those. I don't know how they got there. I don't know that I don't recall us having a discussion about what that was going to be. Has anyone else had a problem with it?
Yes, I've been told they're traffic calming, sir.
Yeah, because while you're recuperating from your broken whatever you break when you hit the roof of your car, there won't be as many people out there. It's a very bad event, and maybe everyone should set your speedometer at 25 and see if you can get through there. And if you think that's what we owe our citizens, it's a bad design, and I was stunned to see them there, and I would like us to either revisit it or have them ground down. It's a very expensive thing. I don't know why they had to be so high. I can't believe that it was done in the interest of the citizens of Buellton.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.
Councilman Sanchez, any comments or items from you?
Yes, and one is to do with the speed bump that should be a hump. I don't think it'd be that big a deal to make it smoother.
Yes.
Or at least see how far, we wouldn't have to fly as far. There must be a way to make it without it so abrupt up and down. And then that's something for them to figure out. The other thing is, as I was watching the meeting last week, and I was invited to partake in the vaping and smoking ordinance, and I took my time today and went to every place but one that sold the products, and every one of them was behind the counter. Every one of them knew the rule. Every business has a $3,000 fine if they break the rule, and the clerk gets a $1,000 fine if they break the rule. And everybody was very aware of the safety for the children. And I still don't believe it should be revisited. And that's my comment on that.
All righty. Thank you. Councilman King, any items or comments from you?
Yeah, I also want to talk about that speed bump, but I did have a conversation with our city manager. Being a law enforcement for 25 years, I drove over that and I was flabbergasted. I understand that it is an ADA requirement. If we have a sidewalk or a curb that crosses the street, that has to be basically wide enough for a handicapped individual to take a wheelchair across there. But for emergency vehicles, and if they're unaware of that being there, I have a feeling that there could be a crash there. You could easily lose control over that. And either hit parked cars that are over on the right side of the southbound or on the right side of the northbound lanes. So I think we might have to take a look at that. And I did have like I said, I had a conversation with Scott, and I think they're looking into that. Fire department in particular, their trucks would have to slow down to a few miles an hour to negotiate that type of speed bump in the road. It's not just a bump. It goes up, it flattens out, goes back down the other side. I've talked to some of the people in the area. They were concerned. The people were literally, before they put any of the arrows on there showing that there was a speed bump there, they said people were basically, the front end of their car was coming off the ground when they hit that. So I think possibly to take another look at that. To be ADA compliant, we may have to take that out and then put ramps cut the curb out and make a ramp to go down to the level of the highway, and then a ramp on the other side that goes back up to the curb level, like we have on the corners within our city limits. So I think that Scott is going to be taking a look at that, but I do think that it's a serious concern the way it is designed right now.
Madam Mayor, if I can comment on that just very quickly. I have been paying attention to the comments and critiques that we've been getting regarding this particular improvement. I have spoken with our Public Works Director, who has informed me that the project is nearly complete as far as the contract is concerned, and so for the purposes of finalizing that contract, because it was constructed as approved by the City Council, that contract will be completed. And then we will look at what other alternatives are out there, and we will return to the City Council with some alternatives that you can look at. It is important to understand that these plans were approved after a discussion by the City Council approximately a year ago. A considerable amount of time was spent specifically discussing the tabletop crosswalk features, but we can look at alternatives in ways that we can alter those features to both meet the required standards as well as minimize the element of surprise, let's say, to the public, and minimize potential damage to both private vehicles and our street improvements. And we'll be returning to the City Council in the future with that discussion.
Good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
I think that one slipped by us.
Yeah, I don't remember.
There's a lot on everyone's plate. Every once in a while, something's going to slip. But
I don't remember tabletop discussions, but I just wanted to mention that a nonprofit group has approached me. They are interested if the lot on Central and 2nd Street does not get developed in the near future, that they would very much like to come in and create a community garden with development going on the Avenue of Flags. A lot of new tenants will not have yards to garden in, and they would like to set up a community garden on that location. Just something to think about right now. I also wanted to let everybody know that since we didn't make it to the League of Cities in Long Beach, that I've been participating virtually. And I've discovered that Zoom in the mornings, competing with a bunch of school children using Zoom for schoolwork, is incredibly frustrating. I don't know how the kids are getting it done. I've had offers to come to City Hall and spend my day there, but I haven't done that yet either. So anyway, all righty, moving on. Written communications, do we have any?
no, ma'am.
Committee reports.
None have met. We haven't had a meeting since our last council meeting, any of the ones I'm on.
No meetings.
No, ma'am.
Mrs. Councilman Sanchez, you have one?
I'm sorry. Yeah, we had the Arts and Culture Committee meeting, and it was really good. There's a project the guy wants to put on some sculptures actually on the Avenue, and another one that has some artwork with some like a virtual fire thing, and that's all gonna be good coming. And we had a really nice meeting out under the trees in the open. And anyway, we're looking good for the Arts and
Sounds
Culture.
like fun.
Wonderful. Wonderful. Thank you. Moving on to business items. Agenda item number 6 is consideration of a new contract with Metro Ventures Ltd. for Irma L. Tucker to provide professional planning services. Director Kiefer?
Good evening, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. The contract for Irma Tucker of Metro Ventures expires on October 24th, 2020. As you are aware, Ms. Tucker has been assisting by taking on major special projects and work that is subject to reimbursement by major developers. Under the current contract to date, Ms. Tucker has worked a total of 934.5 hours, which that includes hours from October 24th, 2019 through August 31st of this year. This is approximately 90% of the current contract amount. Of this, 83.5 hours have been billed to private development projects, which equates to $6,760 some of her contract amount billed to private development projects through August 31st. I will note that it is anticipated that more of Ms. Tucker's hours that are not reflected in the billings through August 31st are anticipated to be applied to private development projects, as we have been processing a large development project that does accumulate a good number of hours on the private development side. Ms. Tucker's services have been vital in reducing the overall department workload, which in turn has allowed the department to continue to run smoothly and to provide the public with the efficient services that the department has been generally known for providing. Based upon the current and anticipated workload, Ms. Tucker's services will continue to be vital through at least the end of this current fiscal year 2021, to ensure that the planning department continues to operate smoothly and efficiently, and to ensure that projects currently underway are seen through to completion within anticipated timelines. The planning department is currently undertaking or gearing up to begin several long-range planning efforts, as well as processing several large development projects in the city. So as you were provided in attachment 1 to the staff report, this attachment lists some of these projects and the staff that is assigned to each one of those projects. But as noted in the staff report, this is not a comprehensive list of all the tasks and duties of the department. However, it is meant to provide the council with a general idea of the breakdown of the workload as among city staff and Ms. Tucker and her role as a consultant. As shown in the attachment, Ms. Tucker will be tasked primarily with working on special projects that, given the current workload of the department, would otherwise require a time commitment that would eliminate the department's ability to take on its normal work and complete projects within anticipated timelines. So those projects are listed in the staff report, and rather than go through all of them, I just wanted to highlight a couple of them. So Irma is currently serving as the project manager for several private development projects on the Avenue. Notably the Creekside Village project, which will be coming to the City Council for consideration in a few weeks from now. Also the Arco gas station and convenience store project on the north end of the Avenue, as well as several others. Irma is also, she currently oversees the land use and circulation element update that the department is currently undertaking. This project is anticipated to be completed in the fall of next year. The city is also gearing up to begin other long-range planning efforts, including the comprehensive housing element update and a zoning code update. So if Irma's contract is approved, she will assist the department in conducting some background research and get these planning efforts started so that the department can carry them forward to completion. So in addition to processing several development projects, there is also several long-range planning efforts that are on the department's plate that are coming together at one point in time. And so because of this, and due to unanticipated effects of COVID-19, as well as my extended absence earlier in this year that did occur much earlier than anticipated, there is a need in the department for Ms. Tucker's services through at least the end of fiscal year 2021. And this is all with the goal to see some of the projects through to completion that we're currently undertaking, to allow for significant progress to be made on others, and to transition all other projects to that she is currently working on to current city staff. So the contract that is before you tonight includes a provision for 20 hours a week for a total proposed, on average, for a total proposed contract amount of 710 hours through the end of fiscal year 2021. And note that this would be the same number of hours per week under the current contract with Metro Ventures. However, the overall number of hours would be reduced under this contract, given that the proposed contract would be for a period of 9 months as opposed to 1 year. The hourly rate will be consistent with the current contract at $81 per hour. Additionally, a provision has been included in the draft contract, a copy of which is attached to the staff report, that would require that the city manager and planning director review the department's workload every 90 days over the duration of the contract. And based upon the findings resulting from these reviews, the city manager would take appropriate action if necessary to amend the contract with Metro Ventures. So an amount of $28,350 is currently included in the budget for fiscal year 2021 for contract services with Metro Ventures. The new contract would be for a total of $57,510. It is anticipated a portion of her contract will be covered by private development reimbursement and several grant opportunities potentially that are currently available. So while efforts will be made to cover as much of the contract's cost with private development reimbursement and potentially some grant funding, the amount of future reimbursement work is not known at this time. Therefore, the maximum fiscal impact to the city beyond what is currently budgeted would be $29,160. And with that, staff recommends that the City Council authorize the City Manager to enter into a contract with contract planning services with Metro Ventures Limited through the end of fiscal year 2021, ending on June 30th, 2021, with a rate of $81 per hour for a maximum of 710 hours. That concludes my report, and I am available for any questions you may have.
Thank you very much.
Madam Mayor.
Vice Mayor Mercado. Oh, go ahead.
I'm sorry, just before the City Council asks questions, I'd just like to make some further clarifications. You'll note that there is a budget adjustment proposed as part of this contract extension. And as an explanation for that, as well as for why this contract extension is here to begin with, let me go back to about a year ago when the City Council approved the current contract, which expires here this month. And it was made very clear to me at that time that the expectation of the City Council was that this would be the final year for this particular contract. As such, when the time came to prepare the budget for the current fiscal year, we budgeted only for the amount of time that was left on Metro Ventures contract within this current fiscal year, plus a small amount of time in addition to cover transition if any were to be required. As Ms. Kiefer noted here, circumstances beyond the city's control and beyond staff's control have intervened and have resulted in a kind of definite need for the additional staffing assistance. Because that's the case, we are coming to the City Council with the unanticipated extension of this particular contract and a request for a budget adjustment. As Ms. Kiefer noted, we will be reviewing this as we go on at least a quarterly basis to determine that Metro Ventures services are still required throughout the rest of this period. If additional alterations to this contract are required, we will bring them back to the City Council for discussion. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions that the Council may have of me, but I'll turn this back to Ms. Kiefer. Yes.
Thank you. Councilman Andrusik, you got your hand up?
Yes,
Questions?
thank you. Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yes. You know, I'm happy that we have a long-range look forward. I think that's probably what's prompted this, and it's been on my mind for a while. I don't think we've intentionally thought that it would be this long. It's always seemed to be a temporary, that we would do something. And I think maybe we need to look at or ask for an analysis of what is our better buy, a new employee or a temporary employee, which we really, you know, it's. I think we're fairly light in our payroll and the number of bodies we have. If someone got sick, I mean, we would have a tough time because we do run very lean. And I'm wondering if I could ask for a future agenda item that, and probably needs to be closed session, but what, you know, a planning forecast rather than to do this every short order time. I think maybe it's time to create a new position. Andrea, I don't know if you have input on it, but I wonder if we could have a future discussion about it. I don't have the solution, but I think we should be looking at the possibilities, or perhaps trying to look for alternatives to bringing this more in line with the rest of the staff, so to speak.
Madam Mayor.
Councilman, I want to thank you for suggesting a future agenda item for that. I think that would be proper. I'm going to turn it over to Scott for a very short response, but this is definitely a future agenda item.
Yes, and as I was about to say, we'll be happy to bring this back for a future agenda item. We note at this point that given the part-time nature of this particular contract extension, it's not recommended at this time, given that the limited amount of additional assistance we need, but we will bring it back to the City Council for future discussion.
Thank you.
All righty. Vice Mayor Mercado, any questions about Ms.?
No questions. I agree with Ed just over the long-term part of it. But one comment is that having worked with Irma when I was on the Planning Commission, she did an outstanding job there.
Absolutely.
And you look at the projects that she's bringing to us now, they're complete.
Coming from a different direction, our need is from a different direction.
Exactly. And so I think it's a contract well designed, and with the opportunity that Scott and Andrea will evaluate it every 90 days, I think that's going to be a big plus for us.
Okay, so no questions from you.
No questions, just a comment.
Any questions from you? Questions?
No, just a comment. I'm very happy with Irma's work, and if the workload requires her to continue, I would approve the extension.
All right. Councilmember King, any questions?
I do not have any questions, but I will reserve for comment.
Okay, thank you. I'm opening it up for public comment then. I don't have any. Linda, do we have any public comment on this item?
No, ma'am.
All righty, then I bring it back to council. I think, Dave, Councilmember King, you're one of the very few who have reserved your comments, so go for it.
You mean actually following the program? I do think that, to Ed's point, that we have a lot of projects going on here, so it may be beneficial for us to, at some point, have another employee rather than kicking the can down the road. And Irma, I believe, has done an outstanding job for the city of Buellton. Every project, every city planning commission meeting that I have sat in on, or she has been in our meetings, she does do an outstanding job. She's a wealth of knowledge, and she's very competent in her field. But rather, I think that us continue to extend contracts, if we see a need, and I'm sure that Andrea and Scott can get together, and if we have a need to, have a full-time employee in planning, then that may be the best course of action for us.
Okay, so what's on the agenda for tonight is the extension of her contract with quarterly review. Did I have a motion from you, Councilman Sanchez?
Yes, you did.
And I will second that.
Councilman King seconds that. Linda?
Okay, Councilmember Sanchez.
Aye.
Councilmember King.
Aye.
Councilmember Andrusik.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Mercado.
Aye.
And Mayor Sierra.
Aye. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mayor.
Something to look at down the line, gentlemen. Business item number 7, resolution number 20-27, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Buellton, California, expressing support for actions to further strengthen local democracy, authority, and control as related to local zoning and housing issues. Mr. Wolf.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. As was noted at the last City Council meeting, I had received a request from a council member to look into an organization called California Cities for Local Control, and to bring back to the City Council for your consideration a resolution which you have before you this evening. The purpose of this resolution is essentially to send a message to the state government that what appears to be a steady stream of infringements upon local control and authority is, let's say, unwelcome, unwanted, and that in the minds of the City Council, should you approve this resolution, the City Council will be stating that it is the feeling of the City Council that local government or local decisions, particularly with regard to zoning and housing, should be made by local government, because the local government, being the closest to the people, is much more aware of the circumstances and situations that affect our locality more so than the state legislature is. The resolution that's before you is a fairly standard resolution that has been adopted by a number of other cities in response to the request by California cities for local control. It's actually almost verbatim the resolution that's been used by any number of cities, and you can go and those can be seen all over California. I will note that we have received a couple of public comments, and those will be read into the record here very shortly. But in anticipation of those public comments coming in, I would like to address a couple of the items. There are some just general comments with regard to language and the apparent ambiguity or vagueness of the language. And the intent of this resolution is not to identify specific action, simply to identify the City Council's desires for the state to minimize its intrusion into city government affairs. Therefore, it's not necessary to identify specific intrusions or specific action that could be taken. It's simply a request to stop that. It also identifies expresses support for actions, and that those actions that the city would support could be those on the part of the state to reduce their infringement into local control, or could be actions on the part of cities to resist that infringement. Let's see. There is a statement here that this is that the resolution seems to be political posturing. That is, in fact, what this is. It is a message being sent to the legislature in Sacramento that the city feels that the actions they've been taking up to this point are not appropriate. As far as specific laws or regulations, and both of the public comments to be read request what specific laws or regulations are in effect. There are any number of which, most of the ones that we could cite tonight, and I can read off a couple of them here, most of them have been addressed or approved by the legislature already. Most of them have to do with planning, zoning, housing. Some of them have to do with transit, and there are some CEQA regulations here that come into play as well. I can list a few of them here. AB 831, SB 288, SB 899. There was a big one last year, the year before, SB 50, I believe, which was particularly concerning to local governments throughout the state. There are likely, well, almost certainly to be more of those. We don't identify them here in this resolution. We will likely identify them in a future resolution should the City Council so desire, but that would take place after the next legislative session starts and we have a list of legislation that's being proposed. At this point, I'll conclude my remarks. I'm happy to answer any questions the City Council may have, but I'll just conclude by stating this is the draft resolution before you expresses a position. By adopting this resolution, the city is, in effect, taking a position and sending that position to the legislature as a message. So with that, I'll conclude my report.
Thank you very much. Do we have any questions for Mr. Wolf regarding this agenda item? Vice Mayor Mercado?
No.
Okay. Councilman Andresic?
You know, it's not that item. I think this would be a kind of a return back to council comments. And I just made a note when I was going through the agenda packet, establish longer lead time for future events. And I know we're going to talk about the next agenda item, but I think I was trying to recall the date that we have set up for the open house. I think we're going to talk about, or make it available, the Williamson, get the input from the community. And I didn't want to go home and see that I forgot to deliver that.
We will bring that up here later in the agenda. Yes, thank you.
All righty. Thank you, sir. Councilmember Sanchez, any questions?
No questions, thank you.
Councilman King?
No questions, but I'd like to thank Scott for expediting this, because I think that what is written in here is that, you know, it should be up to local control of development of our cities rather than just blanketly, you know, sweeping legislation from the state telling all of us cities and counties what to do.
Okay.
Here, here.
I just had one question before I go to public comment. I understand the resolution. Does it really change anything?
There is no, nothing to result from this other than the sending of a message to the legislature. That's the purpose. And this is something that, this particular issue is something that the League of California Cities addresses on a regular basis. But the League's focus has to be necessarily very broad to cover the entire range of legislation that comes down the pipe every year, whereas this particular organization that has requested this resolution is specifically addressing the infringement of local control by the state. So,
Thank you. All righty, then I'm going to go to public comment. I do have 2 public comments on this. And if there's more after that, Linda, please let me know. This is to City Council, October 8th meeting agenda. I'm commenting on agenda item number 7, resolution number 20-27 regarding local zoning and housing. I have 2 comments on resolution 2027. In the 5 whereas paragraphs, there isn't a single specific law identified among the proliferation of state legislation to which the council would be objecting. Surely the resolution can name some problematic laws if the council feels compelled to vote on it. Number 2, the resolution's title includes the words support for actions. However, there is only one vaguely worded action saying the city will explore various ways to do something related to zoning. City staff can research zoning options without having the council adopt a resolution. This resolution seems to be unnecessary political posturing. Please vote against it, Len Fleckenstein. Then we have one. Dear City Council, please accept my comment on agenda item number 7, resolution 2027 about local zoning and a request from California Cities for Local Control CCLC. Number 1, the resolution's language seems intentionally vague. Number 2, what specific state laws or regulations is the resolution referring to that restrict Buellton zoning authority? 3, what is the specific motivation for CCLC to have this resolution passed now? 4, there needs to be transparent public discussion for the need for this resolution to include the special interests involved and identify of which properties may be affected by city actions challenging state or county regulations. 5, please do not approve this resolution. Thank you, Larry Bishop. Linda, were there any other public comments?
No, ma'am.
All righty, thank you. I am closing public comment, coming back to council for discussion and possible resolution.
Comment?
Was that a motion, Councilman Sanchez, to pass this resolution 2027?
Yes, I would like to politically posture. And the transparency is today we're discussing it. And
Exactly.
Overdue.
And
Second.
I think we should.
And I'll second that with political posturing.
Do we have any pitchforks?
There is absolutely no need for that, gentlemen. No need. You've got to respect other people's viewpoints. So we've had a motion and a second. Linda, roll call.
Okay, Councilmember Sanchez.
Aye.
Councilmember King.
Aye.
Councilmember Andrusik.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Mercado.
Aye.
And Mayor Sierra.
Aye. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, I just wondered if I cannot recall the item we had where we had gathered all of this money according to Hoyle and California, bigger government groups, and we had $6 million in the bank, and the guy in Sacramento made us send it to him. What was that?
I vaguely
What was
remember
that
something
department
about
called? What was the money?
remember RDA. Yes, I do remember
Redevelopment
that.
Agency.
Right.
There we
I
go.
do
Thank you.
remember RDA. Yes, I do. Thank you, gentlemen. Moving on to business item number 8. Approval of use of 202 Dairyland Road, the Williamson property, for a city-sponsored recreational event. Mr. Wolf.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. I will mention it now, as well as in City Manager's report. As the City Council is aware, in May of this year, we closed escrow on the Williamson property, and the City Council is currently seeking input from the public on future uses of the Williamson property. We've received quite a bit of input already. We are continuing to compile that, and we will bring that to you sometime after the first of the year. However, before that happens, we have an opportunity that has come up to partner with one of the local nonprofit agencies and one that the City Council has supported in the past, that being the Central Coast Film Society, to utilize this property for an event which would put on something akin to a drive-in movie, utilizing the lower portion primarily, the 20 acres lower portion of the property as a location for vehicles to enter and park, and then a screen could be installed either on the bottom, at one end of that lower portion, or possibly up on the upper portion of the property, which would allow it to be visible to all the vehicles, and a film could be shown. The impacts to the adjacent neighborhood are being considered. The access to the site would be limited to access through Riverview Park, and there would be no public address system, as the sound system that would be utilized would utilize an FM radio transmitter, and the sound would be broadcast through car vehicles, through car radios rather, within the vehicles. The date that's being looked at this point possibly could be as early as November 6th, although we would need to do some work in order to make it happen that early. At this point, what staff is looking for is simply authorization from the City Council to investigate this and hold an event on the site should it become feasible. Riza Georgiev with the Central Coast Film Society is here this evening to answer any questions that the City Council may have. She may have a few words to speak herself, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that the Council may have for me.
Okay, so Risa, do you want to take just a couple minutes and explain what you would be doing, and then we'll have questions, and then I'll go to public comment?
Sure. So a while ago, the Film Society had received a grant from the city of Buellton to purchase some audio-visual equipment. We got podcast equipment, which you can listen to. We have some great episodes. And we also were trying to come up with a film festival this year, which obviously has been scrapped due to COVID. However, Scott and I have been talking about possibly doing a drive-in event, which would be something I think that is still within the parameters of, socially distant, acceptable activities. And I think it would also be a really great way to help out a local business that is struggling. You guys know Parks Plaza Theater has been around for generations, and with this COVID event, they have been hurting pretty bad. And I don't think I talked to Lisa Gran yesterday, and she said that they're not looking to open up anytime soon. But anyways, so what would happen essentially is that it would be a family-friendly movie, so it could attract a wide variety of people, from locals to, Central Coast Regional. And I did talk with her because, they have the drive-in event drive-in in Santa Maria. And so we're thinking that this could be kind of they would get a portion of the proceeds. We could donate a portion of the proceeds to Buellton Rec, or if we had, perhaps I haven't talked to Pam Nico yet, but perhaps she could sell tri-tip sandwiches that are pre-made and raise money for the Buellton Senior Center. I just think this would be such a fun event for the whole community. And the Film Society we want to sponsor the licensing of the film. I found a company out of Bakersfield that has the screen equipment. And so they would handle everything from setup to the FM radio to breakdown. The cost is $2,000, but I think that this would be a great way to get us sponsors from other local businesses to cover that cost. So hopefully the city wouldn't have any cost other than possibly mowing the field, because it is a fire hazard at the moment, if there were cars on it. And yeah, so I know there's a ton of other drive-in events happening. And this would be something fun for our community. I know the San Ynez Chamber just put one on that was really successful. I believe they sold out. So people want to do things in a safe and fun way. So,
and the movie would be?
Still yet to be determined. We're thinking Coco, but I'm not sure if we have to talk with the licensing company, and there might be some other fun holiday themed movies. I'm also talking with a local musician, possibly who's a very big name, and Dave King would know him, that we could combine this with like a fun music event. And so I don't want to say anything yet because nothing has been set in stone or anything like that.
Got it.
But something family friendly.
We're just agreeing to the idea of having it down there and moving forward with the idea. Got it.
Right.
So I have 3 letters. So questions first. Does anybody have questions for either Mr. Wolf or Risa?
No, ma'am.
No? Okay.
Green light thinking.
Comments?
Green light thinking is working. Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm hoping the city attorney will humor me. I'm looking at the 3 comments for this agenda item, and none of them, they all talk about the Williamson property, but not directly about the event. So I probably should have read them in during public comment, but since I missed that, may I read these very quickly?
Yes, you may, and if they're the ones that I saw earlier today, they at least bear on the idea of having an event there, so I'm perfectly fine with it.
Thank you very much. The first one is from Steve Benson. My name is Steve Benson. My wife Danielle and I have lived on Valley Dairy Road in Buellton for the past 20 years. We raised our kids here, loved this community, and have been very appreciative of the role our residents and city government have collaboratively played in maintaining and enhancing the community we all value. For the first time in 20 years, I felt compelled to share my thoughts with this council. After reading the article in last Tuesday's Valley Extra regarding the city's acquisition of the Williamson property and the request for public feedback on potential uses of the property, which currently include a library or daycare center, among others, I became concerned and reached out to my neighbors for feedback. Residents of the 14 homes along the Valley Dairy corridor between Highway 246 and the Williamson property stand to be among the most impacted by the city's decisions in this matter. Last night, 11 residents of these 14 homes came together over Zoom to discuss our concerns. Consensus was reached on the following points. 1, we're very concerned about impacts to safety associated with any increased traffic on our residential street, especially given the large number of young children who reside in our homes. Consider the careful planning 25 years ago that went into providing access to what would become Riverview Park, in which Lower Sycamore Drive was specifically designed without adjoining driveways to maximize safety. Lower Valley Dairy Road is in stark contrast, with driveways connecting on both sides of the street every, give or take, 65 feet. 2, concerns associated with quality of life impacts were raised, noise, lighting, and parking, as well as property value impacts. Concerns were also raised about alcohol-related spillover from events onto our streets and sidewalks. 3, we discussed many ideas for potential use of the property, which I'll leave up to everyone to submit independently to keep the word count of this comment within limits. But our above all preference would be to sell off the bluff-top portion of the property for use in a residential manner consistent with its use across the 25-year history of our neighborhood. Prior to sale, perhaps historic designation would be considered for the barn to secure its future. 4, if the bluff top portion is not sold off, consider adding access to the property from Industrial Way and removing vehicular access to the property from our neighborhood. Lastly, a quick story. I was coming home from work one afternoon last month, driving down Valley Dairy Road and getting ready to pull into my driveway when a 3-year-old on a bike came blazing down a blind driveway directly into the street, no more than 20 feet in front of me, gleefully ignoring his mom screaming "stop" in the background. I slammed on my brakes and was able to stop in time, and the oblivious 3-year-old went on with his day. It's happened to all of us and will happen again. Replace a that instant with a frazzled parent late to pick up their child from daycare, or a distracted new teen driver on their way to the library, and imagine how tragic the outcome could have been. Collectively, my neighbors and I would like to be actively engaged in the Williamson property planning and decision-making process, both today and in ongoing capacity as case-by-case decisions are made. Please let us know how best to accomplish this in a manner which ensures that input from heavily impacted residents such as ourselves is continuously given weight moving forward. Best regards, Steve and Danielle Benson. Got 2 more, guys. I am submitting the following 4 comments regarding agenda item number 8, use of 202 Dairyland Road for an event. Number 1, before holding any event at the former Williamson property, the council should complete a thorough process for obtaining Buellton residents' input, especially from Meadow Ridge residents, regarding how the property should be used. 2, the event being considered would be better held at Riverview Park, which has ample parking, better layout for traffic flow, and its lower elevation would help ensure less noise and disruption in the neighborhood. 3, if the council authorizes an event prior to obtaining residents' input, the event should be something highly valued by most residents. Would a film screening meet that criterion? 4, please vote against any event at this property during 2020, except for tours for residents or meeting to obtain residents' inputs. Len Fleckenstein. 1 more. Comment from Katie Fleckenstein, 259 Valley Dairy Road. As a resident on the same street as the Williamson property, I respectfully ask the City Council to greatly consider the impact of your decision regarding the use of the property, regarding the use the property will have on residents in that neighborhood. About 8 or 9 houses on our street have met and discussed the pros and cons of many ideas suggested online and mentioned by council members. The general consensus is that most uses will negatively impact us, potentially drastically. There is the threat of increased traffic, which will contribute to safety issues with the many children that live on our block, as well as road damage, noise, more lights, littering, less privacy, and the potential introduction of more people from outside of Buellton who have no stake in our community. As taxpayers in the city of Buellton, I hope our needs are met prior to the needs of any other entity. Ideally, we would love to see the upper portion of the Williamson land, where the house and barn are located, remain a residential property. We also discussed the idea of having traffic drive to the property from another route rather than Valley Dairy Road. If this is not possible, it is important for the property to remain a residence rather than a commercial or similarly zoned property. If the property must be used for another purpose, I believe it would be best used as a community co-op gardens where people can grow fresh produce and the local schools can learn about produce and agriculture. This idea received a lot of support on social media as well as within our neighborhood group. I hope you will each receive a copy of this email as I'm including a link to more information about residential community gardens. There are many more helpful resources online. Please take the time to learn about this terrific opportunity to offer an incredible new asset to our community. Throughout this process, I hope you will consider the traffic, safety, aesthetic, noise, light, economic, and emotional impact this will have on our neighborhood and community. Even ventures that raise money for the city will have increased expenses due to management oversight and wear and tear on our infrastructure that must be considered. I believe this decision should be heavily weighted by the opinions of the residents in the neighborhood of the Williamson property, and I hope you will involve us more moving forward. Thank you for your time and consideration. Katie Fleckenstein. Linda, any other public comments?
No, ma'am.
All righty. Thank you. I bring it back to council.
Holly, I still have a couple questions.
Sure.
If that's okay. So we, the Film Society also talked about those impacts as well, because true, the access would be going through that neighborhood. And so is there access from Industrial Way over in that area? Because I know it's next to the wastewater treatment facility. So I don't know if there's any access from that direction.
There is not adequate access at this point, at least, for the type of vehicular traffic that we would be looking at. There is, however, adequate access through Riverview Park off of Sycamore, so that Valley Dairy would not be impacted.
And we could probably put some cones, some barriers at Valley Dairy to have the traffic go straight down Sycamore.
We can certainly sign. Yes, we can sign the route in so that it's apparent to anyone coming in which way they need to go.
Okay. And then my other question would be, there would be some issues regarding restrooms to either keep Riverview Park open, or if we need to get porta potties, if in fact we do move forward with this. And power, if we're going to be using power from the top property, and lighting too, because, if people need to go to the restroom, they can't walk in the dark. So yeah, those are all questions that would need to be filled at some point.
We would certainly look into the answers to those questions as we move forward with the planning of an event. And this evening, it seems premature to go through that research at this point until we have authorization from the City Council to move.
Those are just issues that we brought up when we were talking about it, and timing as well. It'd be nice to do something before during the holiday season. But if it needs to extend into 2021 for more analysis or conversations with the community, I'm very happy to do that as well. That's all I have.
Gentlemen, what say you?
You want me to go first?
Vice Mayor Mercado, I have my list tonight. Yes, please.
Okay. I think it's something to look at with Scott's input and maybe the rec program. All those things that Race brought up hopefully could be mitigated. They are concerns. But I think it's something to look at and to see if it can work out. If we don't investigate it, we'll never know, okay, this might be too big of an issue and it has to be postponed till 2021. But at least this gives the staff an opportunity to do some investigating and try to put on a good program.
All righty. Thank you. Councilman Andrusik.
I would ask Scott, I think this would be an appropriate time. Did we have a set aside, did we announce a couple of weeks ago you were going to have the house open for community people to come preview it and perhaps come up with a suggestion for community use?
Right. We had an event like that last month. There's another one planned for this month, October 24th, from noon to 3.
10/24 from 2 to 3?
Noon to 3.
Noon to 3. Thank you. Okay.
All righty. Councilman Sanchez, comments?
Yeah, I've always thought that was a good idea for that property, and concerns about the citizens and the traffic, I think, are well taken. I think everything is going to have to go down Sycamore and through the bottom anyway. And I would also promote anything we can get to get connection to Industrial Way. I know it's a big deal, but it would, just for circulation, and I would support continuing our proceeding in the investigation of this project.
All righty. Thank you. Councilman King.
Want to ask just maybe some clarifying questions for Riza. Now, you plan on possibly putting the screen up on the actual elevated property of where the grass area is next to the house, and then everyone would park in that section below.
Yeah, so the screen would be facing towards the river.
Right.
And then all the cars obviously would be down below in that field. That's just what.
So in essence, these letters that were submitted were from people that didn't have that clarification or were kind of jumping the gun, all thinking that everybody's going to drive down to the Williamson property house, where the house is.
Yeah, no.
And in reality, so for any of you maybe watching this, that's what I got from you, is that the screen would be up on the property, elevated above, and it would be like a outdoor movie theater, right?
Yes.
Okay, so in reality, it wouldn't be, people running over your children in the dark.
No. And I mean, as far as a family-friendly event, I don't believe, and people would be driving too. So obviously, alcohol is out of the question there.
Right.
So this is just a few hours right after it gets dark, and then be done. But there would be traffic issues, obviously, because there would be cars driving up and down Sycamore. And if maybe we had some volunteers to, make sure people don't go down the side roads and just stick strictly to Sycamore, that might be a good option.
Gotcha.
I don't know. It would take some research. We just wanted to know if that was even a possibility at this point, or maybe something to explore for next year. I don't know.
Right. Okay. So I think some of these people that are concerned, really, it's not really that much of an issue, because all of that would be going really on a thoroughfare down to the park.
Right. And then they would enter through Riverview Park and then come back that same direction. Or I don't know if something can be opened up through the other side that leads to industrial. I don't know what that looks like. So.
Well, I think realistically, you could take a tractor in there and drag a dirt road, but then you're creating a big dust cloud out there in the middle of that area.
Yeah. These are things we would be able to look into, and while I would hate to say that the neighbors, well, let's just say that the issues that we're discussing here were not known to the neighbors. We have other issues that or other thoughts that may come into play here. One being that this would be an event attended only by those in vehicles. We would not allow walk-ins. That way we could ensure that access to the site was done by vehicle on the approved path in and out. It would reduce the amount of pedestrian traffic through the neighborhood, or the desire for attendees to want to park their car up top and walk down. we would only allow people in, and we would only sell tickets to the event by the carload. So there are other things will come into play here as well. Again, this is very early in the process. We will return to the City Council with an update should the council authorize use of the property. What we're looking for this evening is just authorization to proceed.
And honestly, I have no problem. I think I agree with the councilman that it would be really nice to have some kind of an event to get people together socially, politically, correctly, safely. And this sounds like it would be something our community would really enjoy. So as long as we're able to proceed, somehow cutting off Valley Dairy Road for residents only, I'd be happy to. I have a little community cleanup of a yellow flashing laser thing I can wear and stop traffic. But I would agree that it would be fun to go ahead and see if we can pull something like this off. Is everybody pretty much it doesn't look like we need a motion on this. Just consent to move forward with it?
That's fine.
Okay.
I agree.
Nobody's against the idea? Okay.
No.
Thank you. Risa, great idea. And we're going to move on to the city manager's report.
Thank you, Risa.
Wonderful. Thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the City Council. My report tonight will, again, be very short. As was mentioned earlier, the Williamson property will have tours given to the public. Anyone who would like to show up between the hours of noon and 3 p.m. on October 24th, drop on by, no appointment necessary. We will have volunteers giving tours of the house itself, as well as the barn facility, and then the property will be open to walk for anyone who cares to do that as well. Also, I would like to just announce to the public, for those who haven't heard, that the Public Health Department of Santa Barbara County has released guidelines for the celebration of Halloween in the time of COVID-19. Contrary to some of the concerns that have been expressed, to me at least, the Public Health Department did not prohibit the activity of trick-or-treating. However, they do provide some recommended methods for both engaging in that as a participant as well as a home being visited by our trick-or-treaters. I would encourage everyone to go to the Santa Barbara County Public Health Department's website, and they can view these guidelines and recommendations for themselves. Gatherings are prohibited, so Halloween parties and such are not something that the Public Health Department is allowing under their health order, but other types of traditional Halloween activities are permitted. Go to that website, which is publichealthsbc.org, and you can take a look at those there. If you have any other questions, you can give City Hall a call. With that, I'll conclude my report.
We have one more. Could you explain what the city is doing for Halloween? A reverse trick-or-treating?
Oh, yes, the reverse trick-or-treating, which is one of the things that the county is recommending and has been distributed far and wide across Southern California with using the city of Buellton as an example. The city, in conjunction with others, will be providing a reverse trick-or-treating experience this year. If you sign up with the Buellton Rec Department, a vehicle will be driving through the neighborhoods and depositing treats to everyone who's signed up. We encourage children to come out in their costumes into the front yard and yell trick or treat as the vehicle comes by and tosses candy out to them. It's an interesting twist on a traditional activity, and for some it may be just enough to be able to say, hey, yes, we've trick-or-treated. But for those for whom that's not enough, we have the guidelines in place from the county.
I thought the kids were going to bring me candy.
We'll make a special trip.
Sign up, little Davy. Sign up for the rec.
No, I want kids to come to my house and bring me candy.
Oh.
I hear it's a costumed adult who brings you candy. I'm sorry. All righty. With that, I'm adjourning this meeting until Thursday, October 22nd, 2020 at 6 o'clock. Thank you all very much.
Thank you.
Hey, good night.
Night. Thank you, guys.